Skupština super. Može.
Professor Martina, are you hear me? Martina Topić?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Okay. Good afternoon. How are you? Kako smo možemo i ovako pre oficijalnog početka nastavka na engleskom. Nadam se da ste dobro i ovako. Ajde onda sad da pređemo na profesionalno.
Dobro.
So, dear colleagues and friends, I'm pleased to invite Professor Martina Topić from Leeds Beckett University in London to present her investigation concerning the phenomenon of ecofeminism. So, I invite you to start your presentation. You will give your lecture 45 minutes, and after that we shall have a 15 minutes discussion and questions concerning your point of view. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to share the screen first. Can you see my screen like this?
Yes, it is. Everything is okay. Yes.
Okay. I can't see all of the screen because the pictures of Zoom are covering, but that's okay. Thank you for the invitation and for the participation in this conference. I'm Martina Topić. I'm currently a reader at Leeds Beckett University in UK, but I just accepted an offer actually from the University of Alabama in the United States. So I'm going to be moving hopefully soon to America. So next time we see each other in an online space, I might be presenting in the middle of the night. I've done lots of work on ecofeminism. I even wrote some books. So today I'll just speak a little bit about ecofeminism, how I see the theory and the approach, and then just some of my research, mainly to call for for empirical application of ecofeminism, because I think it's not just one of those theories, it actually has an empirical application because I used it in empirical research. I'm a sociologist and communication scholar, and then I study women within that, and I've used ecofeminism for my research of media and communications industries. So I was looking a bit more when I was invited to participate in this conference about the anthropological view of ecology and the environment and ecological affairs. So one of the approaches I found, and it's very, very interesting, that it actually, anthropological view of ecology focuses on adaptive and exploitative relations with the agency of technology. And that's something I find very interesting, because ecofeminism also talks about technology. And I will speak about that a little bit more later. So there is this focus on how we exploit the environment, how we run ecological policies, and then there is technology within that. But I think that ecofeminism should be included in any consideration of ecology or the environment or the climate change, or generally when we speak about the planet, because ecofeminism basically puts women at the center of the ecological struggle. Because if you look at all data about climate change, for example, and there is a drought, there is a flood, there is anything happening on the planet, it's very, very often that women are disproportionately affected by issues that happen. And there is empirical evidence for this. And ecofeminism actually speaks about this very, very clearly. Ecofeminism also tackles the issue of technological exploitation and as an issue in environmental protection. They also tackle masculine ideology that dominates the planet first through speciesism, and then cascades down to enforce the domination of genders, races, and classes through anthropocentrism. So if you apply ecofeminist theory, then you can use, for example, intersectionality approach, or you can just look at one of the elements. It really has a good application to any research. And I think it's a unique and holistic approach to studying the environment, because it has inequality at its heart, and it tries to speak to everyone. So it tries to speak to people, who face poverty, indigenous populations. It talks about colonialism. It talks about genders, races, class, and everything. So if we look at masculine domination of the planet, species, and humans, ecofeminism talks about class, race, age as well, ageism, lived experiences. And one of the central arguments is that domination of women and nature is rooted in historical and cultural practices, that there is this history of oppression and patriarchal subordination, which started, obviously centuries ago, but there is some also evidence in works that, or at least there is an argument that if we look at pre-modern times, we will find matrilineal, agrarian, and peaceful societies which worked on the basis of feminism, and that the change happened from collaboration to domination with Indo-European warriors who took power in Europe and the world, and that's how patriarchy got enforced. So it has this interesting historical component as well. But basically, ecofeminism tackles isms, so racism, sexism, speciesism, and it's an anti-capitalist critique of economic and social conditions that led to the inequality of races, species, and women. But at the same time, it's the only approach I've found that puts women at the center of the ecological struggle, and that it says, well, actually, this is not just a human issue, this is a woman's issue, because first we dominate the planet, then we dominate ourselves amongst ourselves. So we dominate genders, we dominate the basis of race, with the white race dominating non-white races, and then we dominate on the base of class. Ecofeminism, again, has this interesting dualism, which I find interesting. So there is this notion of culture versus nature. So culture is ascribed to men, nature is ascribed to women, and this is why they have women at the center, because they say woman's temperament is seen as unpredictable, and like the nature, it needs to be tamed, controlled, and dominated. So there is this dichotomy and duality, basically, in ecofeminism, which provides a very interesting point of discussion. Ecofeminism also celebrates women. It celebrates their differences and diversity. So it says we don't all need to be the same. We don't need to adjust. We can just be whoever we want to be, and that should be fine, but it often isn't. And it also criticizes what some ecofeminists call women male dealers. So, for example, women politicians like Maggie Thatcher in the UK, Theresa May, also UK, French Marine Le Pen. So these are the women who are tougher than men to prove that they are not soft and who are playing the game of the patriarchy. and proving that they are not emotional, they can get the job done, and they can be very, very tough, and in some ways as leaders even worse than men. And this is something that I've been researching quite a lot, even though in the context of blockification or women who are like blokes. And I was looking into this in the context of journalism, public relations, and advertising, and I was particularly looking at how masculine behavior and communication affects career outcomes. And in some of those research, I also used ecofeminism by saying there is this domination that is pervasive in the society, particularly the British one, where we dominate each other. Also, ecofeminism is not anti-men, it's anti-masculinity in this hegemonic and toxic sense. So ecofeminists will tell you, and I will too, that the problem is not in men per se, but a masculine identity which is conceptualized and defined in patriarchy, with domination and conquiring, and this includes nature, women, and those perceived as others, such as non-white races as well. And basically, ecofeminism opposes separation of humanity from nature. So in many other ecological approaches, you will find this notion of, as humans, this is what planet does to us, and this is why we need to save it so that we can persevere. But ecofeminism actually says, well, no, it's not just our planet. The planet also belongs to other species, not just humans. We should all work together in harmony. And it says that there is this interconnectedness with nature and developing new relationships based on ecological responses, because we should be one with nature and embodied, but very often, obviously, we are not, because capitalist patriarchal economies invest heavily on a profound human alienation from nature. And this is something that ecofeminism tackles. And also what I find very interesting, and this is then linked again with those works on anthropological view of ecology, is this notion of technology. And I personally, as an ecofeminist, advocate against technology in saving the planet, in ruling our lives. And then as a result, some people think that I'm a cave person who doesn't know how to use technology because I advocate against it, but actually that's not true. I'm a website developer, I'm an SEO manager, I'm a Google specialist. I actually know technology very, very well. I know what it does, and that's why I advocate against it, because I find it damaging for the planet. And this is what many ecofeminists believe as well. Because we believe that survival of humans is threatened despite masculine advances in industrialization and technology. Because if you look at the history of science and history of technology, again, this is driven by men. So there is this particular way of thinking that is being imposed on technology. If you look at women in STEM, they're very, very low in numbers. So there is this criticism. And one of the statements I like is from Cross, who said that there is this fragmented and hierarchical relationship with nature, which is rooted in a culture where science and technology are posited as the epitome of the reason, in contrast with pre-modernity, which was centered around nature, myth, and religion. And then if we go back to those dualisms that I mentioned before, then you can see how reason is associated with men and nature that needs to be tamed is associated with women. And then this is something that drives technological advances, which is led by this masculine way of thinking of the world. So there is this history of the right of humans to exploit nature, and humans as the center of the universe, and us versus them, a notion where we, humanity, are us, and then nature is the other. In past, there are also witch hunts, for example, because women were healers using plants to heal, and then with the advancement of the modern science, this resulted with oppression. So there is again this science versus natural remedies, and then this notion that women and men act in fundamentally different ways, which is also why we have a history of women's activism against environmental destruction. And then we have this notion of technology now with, for example, bioengineering trying to fix, geoengineering trying to fix and control the nature to technological intervention. There is this attempt to carbon dioxide removal. So instead of trying to pollute the planet less and try to protect it, there is this advancement in technology that, okay, we can still keep doing and using and exploiting the resources, but then we can fix it with technology. So they're trying to also do iron fertilization of oceans. There is a solar radiation management. There are all these things that are happening to try to revert the climate change without actually changing how we behave and how we treat one another. So this is what in ecofeminism is considered as a masculine domination of nature as well, because again, women are seen in nature are seen as passive and dominated. And if you look at STEM and women in technology, there are major issues with representation, and there is this anthropocentric and instrumentalist view of nature. So ecofeminism basically celebrates women, celebrates their way of thinking, and celebrates the fact that women are different because they grew up in different circumstances, in different environment, and with different values. And because in patriarchy, women are often learning to care for others. It's traditionally the role of a woman to care, to look at the household, and this then transpires somehow into environmental preservation, that women see this oppression and engage a little bit more. And there are a lot of references that actually show the history of women and environmentalism. Ecofeminism then, in the context of technology, also criticizes capitalism and says that the market mechanisms and the logic of capitalism in the form of an expansionary capital accumulation system is actually wrong and is destroying the planet, and that we need to change our own behavior and dress the planet and our behavior into feminine to save the planet rather than go with technological changes. So in a way, I think it's a critique of modernity. Because modernity at its end is seen as patriarchy, capitalism, and the destruction of human lives, because technology will basically, and so far this has not happened, it has not improved the climate change or the environmental protection. And so some empirical applications of all of this is obviously a very, very brief outline of ecofeminist theory. There is much more to say, there is a lot, but I only have 45 minutes. So the way I applied, this is what I wanted to kind of promote and invite for further empirical research into ecofeminism, is that I've used this theory and these concepts from ecofeminism to design some original research. So one of them, for example, was looking at women's leadership styles of eco-villages. So I was looking, how do women lead these eco-villages? Then I also looked at analyzing of the press writing on economic growth, global warming, food waste, CSR, and plastic. And then I was looking how the press writes about economic growth versus environmental affairs. Who writes about it? Is there speciesism in writing? Is technology promoted as a solution to environmental problems? And is there this masculine view of economic growth and the environmental affairs that you can find in the press? So all these concepts from ecofeminism I took and applied to my research. So in the case of the first one, and this was published in a book on ecofeminism, which was published in Zagreb by one of the conference organizers, Goran Đurđević. So I looked at eco-villages and how women lead. So I was asking, these are the research questions I was driven with. Did women found eco-villages? So this comes from this concept of ecofeminism, that women are environmentalists and that they are actually more inclined to protect the environment and recognize.
Martina, I apologize for interrupting you, but we can only see the first slide. Is it supposed to be like that, or are you supposed to be changing the slides of your PowerPoint presentation? Because we just see the first one.
Oh, I've been changing them, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Let me try, because I do have some tape to show you. Just a second. Let me try again. Share screen. Try this one. So just a second.
Yes, it should be fine now.
You do see it now, okay.
Yes, we see it. Thank you. I apologize.
It's all right. So in terms of eco-villages and women's leadership, I was looking at stuff like, did women found eco-villages? So are women really environmentalists? Do they find these eco-villages where people can live in a more sustainable way and protect the environment, which is something that I found in ecofeminist theory. I found lots of references that women would be the ones to be more inclined to protect the environment because of the historical oppression that they face, so they are more likely to recognize. Then I also looked at, if they did found eco-villages, which values are these eco-villages founded on? So I wanted to see, because of this notion of women having a different point of view, having a different upbringing, having a different value set, would this feed into leading these eco-villages differently? And then I was looking also whether vision and philosophy of eco-villages would be at least partially founded on the values of ecofeminism, so extracted again from theory, anti-hierarchy, equality, collectivism. So these are all values of ecofeminism. And then I was looking, are there any differences between eco-villages which were founded by women, if any, because I started generally, and compared to those founded by men. So I did find, I designed this set of tables, basically, like a big table, actually. I just put it in slides in little bits because it's too big. So I was looking particularly at their vision and their philosophy, values, whether the religion is involved, whether there is any hierarchy. And interestingly, in all these cases, I did actually find quite strong differences. So for example, some eco-villages founded by women are very secular, some are very spiritual, but there is no formal religion, for example, in eco-village. There isn't many formal hierarchies, so you have this collectivist approach, what I think in former Yugoslavia we were calling it zadruga, so something like that, where everybody decides, everybody comes together. So very, very collectivist, very centered on people, very little hierarchy. And I've also found value set more centered on collaboration, working together, preserving the environment, sharing everything you have, solidarity. As opposed to that, those eco-villages founded by men, I found a lot more hierarchy, actually, a very clear set of rules and regulations. In one case of one eco-village, which was founded by man in Italy, there is even Puritanism, so almost like a own religion, and people are not even allowed to date or marry or have any relationship. And if they want to do it, then they have to announce it to the whole village and get an approval, and it would be frowned upon to change partners. So you can see this, what ecofeminism says, that religion, technology, science, that all these values are actually masculine and feed into masculine upbringing that many boys face. You see how this feeds into leadership styles of environmental movement. But then you see women and you see a completely different story. So I this was a very small sample. I'm continuing this research. But at the moment, the data points towards confirming that women do lead differently. And then if you look at general leadership literature, for example, in business, in organizations, or my own research into communication industries, where I've been studying leadership, you can see that women always do very, very often lead differently, except for those who grew up with men when they were growing up. So if they played with boys and grew up with boys, they tend to lead like men. But if they grew up with other girls, then there is this collaboration, there is teamwork. So this is very, very interesting. And for this book chapter that I'm mentioning here, I only analyzed 10 most popular eco-villages, those that are seen as most successful, but I am continuing this research to look more widely. So these are basically indicative results, but they are very, very interesting. So the one that I mentioned, which was founded by men, is actually Damanhur, it's called. And also everybody needs to give a financial contribution, and it's based on modern technology, for example, whereas in the women's one, it's about sharing very often, and you give what you can. So there is this collectivism again. Then I did another study. So for a book I published, I analyzed how media write about economic growth, corporate social responsibility, and some of the sustainability issues such as plastic, food waste, for example. And I was arguing basically that it doesn't go together, that we advocate from one point from economic growth, and then we also advocate for environmental protection. I think that doesn't go together. So I wanted to see how the media in Britain write about this, which was quite interesting, because at the same time you have this big public debate about environmental protection, about the planet, about the climate change, but at the same time, what are you actually doing about it other than saturating the coverage and potentially creating an issue? And then within that, I analyzed two main daily newspapers, so the Daily Mail and the Guardian. The Daily Mail is a right-wing, the Guardian is slightly left, but two different type of newspapers, both widely read and popular, to see how they write about these things and to what extent that you could find some elements of ecofeminism. And then what I found, which was very interesting, I confirmed, for example, findings that women have emerged in masculine newsrooms, which is something that we already know from journalism research. So they do write like men quite a lot. And journalism research, for example, teaches us that women, to succeed in journalism, need to be blockified, they need to be like blogs, they need to be like men. So this was one of my findings. But at the same time, I still, even within that, so women advocating for economic growth like men do, and therefore contributing further to the environmental destruction, but at the same time, still to a lower extent than male journalists, at least gave more voice to environmental protection, more voice to environmental activists, more voice to criticism of this capitalist exploitation. So I was asking in a book, would things be different if we had more women in journalism? Most likely they would, because journalism is still a very masculine protection. And these are just some quotes I put. The way they write about economic growth, they're very, very strongly supported as a way to protect the humanity, to move forward. But then you look also, for example, CSR coverage, you can see again that it's supported. Then again, I looked at the global warming. So they do write negatively in a sense that you have to, we need to do something to revert the climate change. We need to do something to fix global warming. We need to do this, but then they don't really say what. And there is this very strong anthropocentrism and very strong focus on humanity. So we need to revert the climate change by using technology to save humanity. So you have speciesism, you have this anthropocentrism, and you do have this notion of masculine technology and ideology that actually rules the media coverage. And interestingly, this is the case even in The Guardian, which has an editorial policy of focusing on climate change and saving the planet, as well as in the Daily Mail. The only difference is that the Daily Mail, as a right-wing newspaper, is very, very strongly anti-environmentalist. So they call environmentalists, lefty loonies. So this is why when in the book where I published this, I actually wrote in my acknowledgements that I know that some will call me a lefty loony for saying what I'm saying, but it is my hope that if humanity still exists, someone in the future will read the book and say she was right. But so there is this difference, but at the same time, even The Guardian, if you look at their coverage, they are all pro reverting climate change, but at the same time, they advocate for economic growth, they advocate for technology, and there is no mentioning of other species, and they're not trying to actually suggest that we need to live in harmony. And it's very much the same with plastic. We need to stop polluting the planet, but there is no debate on why do we have so much plastic? Why do we buy as much as we buy? Why do we consume as much as we do? You don't find that. So if you look at the media, and those of us who study media studies as well and journalism practice, we know how much influence media have. So also one of my conclusions was that they're just saturating the coverage and people are listening too much about this environmental protection. It can become too much and nothing will basically happen. And it's the same with food waste. No criticism of why do we waste so much food, because in the UK, this is a major issue. Britain is one of the biggest consumers in the world, one of the biggest food wasters in the world. Again, why do we buy so much? Why do we need so much marketing? Why do we need so much produce? So I basically designed this figure, calling it the wheel of neoliberalism. Again, ecofeminism is an anti-capitalist critique. It's an anti-neoliberalism critique. So I said that the press advocates for the economic growth and a management of the environment with a biased view of technology as a savior of humanity. And I designed the wheel of neoliberalism, where I said that there is this circle. So you have patriarchy that leads to capitalism, that leads to the position on economic growth. We have to keep growing, and basically depleting resources and using the environment for our own benefit, which then results with corporate social responsibility policies, which I call the smoke screen, for pretending to do actually something for the environment, but actually perpetuating neoliberalism. Then we also have environmental governance and the supremacy of humanity. Then we have this liberal media that actually contribute to the degradation of the environment, which then again feeds into this patriarchal view of domination. Because I believe, I started to believe once I embraced ecofeminism, that we can't just speak about gender domination or racial domination or class domination. I think now, and I agree with ecofeminist theory, that it starts with how we treat the planet and then it goes forward. Also, the last one is actually this ecofeminist reading of research. So I read various chapters on women and the media and capitalism and socialism with ecofeminist lens. And I basically applied the concept of masculinity and capitalism to women in the media. And I was looking at how masculine way of thinking impacts women in the media, whether there are differences between capitalism and socialism. And one of the conclusions was that actually neither is good. We need to start again, and that we need new socialism embedded into ecofeminism. So basically what I was trying to kind of show in this presentation is that ecofeminism is not just a really nice theory that explains the environment. I think it has a very strong empirical application for research, and I think it could also be included in this anthropological, ecological view, some of these concepts to expand as well. But I do believe we can't speak of environmental protection without considering ecofeminism, because it really shows very strongly where the problem starts: patriarchy, capitalism, domination of the planet, domination among humans. So how we treat ourselves is reflected in how we treat the planet. And as a last thing, I would leave you with one of the quotes from one of the mothers of ecofeminism, the Eubon. I don't speak French, I'm sorry. So she said, it is impossible within a patriarchy to suppress a market economy, and it is impossible in a market system to not devastate the planet. It is up to women now to reclaim the words of humanity. So thank you for your attention, and I can answer questions in either English or Croatian. I'm actually in Croatia even now, so I do apologize if birds are singing too loudly. They do that sometimes here.
Dear colleagues, have you any questions, or do you have any idea of a discussion concerning the wonderful lecture from Professor Martina Topić? Is there somebody who would like to initiate our discussion? Please, Uroš Đurković wants to ask something. Thank you, Uroš.
You're welcome, but I think that we all are now speaking Serbo-Croatian, so I suppose that we can switch into...
Ako smo sad onda može, da.
Jer mislim da sada jesmo. Pa ću malo da mislim da ću malo da zloupotrebim, priliku. Hvala mnogo na izlaganju, prosto jednostavnije da pričamo ovako. Hvala mnogo na izlaganju. Mene interesuje nešto što se malo razlikuje od onoga što je istaknuto u izlaganju, a to je odnos kulture prirode i muškosti i ženskosti. Muško, odnosno muškost se uglavnom vezivala za prostor van kuće i za kulturu. Dok je ono što je žensko predstavljeno u prostoru, dakle, kuće, ekskluzivno u prostoru kuće, ali zapravo vezano za sferu prirode, što zapravo deluje kontraintuitivno. Dakle, kućno okruženje i nešto što je vezano za potpunu sferu van doma. Tako da zanima me, uvek ćemo govoriti o majci prirodi, ne o ocu prirodi. Tako da me zanimaju prosto razmišljanja u tom smeru. Ja, dakle, znam da možda malo površno gledam na stvari, a prosto ta dihotomija mi je vrlo bila inspirativna, naravno i u kontekstu ovoga što je rečeno i što ima i političke implikacije, i ne samo političke.
Da, zanimljiva je ova dihotomija, to je od Plumwood iz 1997. Ona to napisala. Da, gleda se kultura, dakle sve što je vanjsko se gleda u stvari kao, nisam o ovome razmišljala, baš zanimljiv komentar. Vanjsko je u stvari muško, a s druge strane priroda je žensko. To naprosto prate ova povijesna istraživanja ekofeminizma još od povijesti kako se gleda. Dakle, razum, s druge strane priroda. Muško, dakle žensko. Onda recimo svijest, odnosno dakle, mind, je li mind svijest u prijevodu, mislim da je, tijelo.
Može.
Onda s druge strane recimo racionalnost, životinske, kao animality, životinske tendencije. Onda opet razum, emocije. I tako ta dihotomija funkcionira i ono što je zanimljivo i što sam ja našla to i u istraživanjima ženskog vodstva, recimo u komunikacijskim industrijama. Jer ja se bavim baš istraživanjem žena u novinarstvu, oglašavanju i odnosima s javnošću, znači ovo je industrija masovnog komuniciranja. I kad sam recimo intervjuirala te žene i pitala ih kako vode, i kakav im je odnos, kako su priznate, samo one koje su odrasle sa dječacima i koje su dakle se igrale, recimo gledale nogomet i natjecale se, su razvile taj natjecateljski duh i napredovale na menadžerske pozicije. A ove druge, recimo, i onda su, kad sam ih pitala, ali što to znači biti menadžer, recimo, kakav neko mora biti da bi postao menadžer, onda su mi baš govorile, ne smiješ pokazivati emocije, ne smiješ pokazivati empatiju, ne smiješ pokazati da si uzrujan, ne smiješ biti bijesan, i to se baš ono vidi po ovom dualizmu iz ekofeminizma kako se gleda. I onda se stvorilo to da samo te, ja sam to prevela Blowkiš kao muškaraste žene u principu idu naprijed. Ali ono što bi bilo recimo zanimljivo istražiti, koristeći isto istraživanje, je možda kako muškarci koji su percipirani kao ženskasti, jer ja bi pogodila da i oni onda imaju tu diskriminaciju po logici. Jer ono što je, ali to se meni recimo sviđa kod ekofeminizma, ne kritizira se muškarce kao muškarce, nego ta hegemonijska muškost. I da dakle nije u stvari problem, koliko ja barem vidim po istraživanjima u Britaniji, u spolu, nego u rodu. I dakle, ako se netko ponaša na određeni način, on će ići dalje. Ako se ova ne ponaša, neće. Tako da je meni da ja u biti gledam u tu behavioralnu, dakle, sa stajališta ponašanja. I mislim da tu ekofeminizam dosta dobro pomaže, ali ovo je zanimljivo kako je vani, ako je priroda, da. Jezično gledajući, da.
Da, hvala mnogo.
To bi mogao biti dobar rad, u biti kritika patrijarhata, kako je besmislen, evo i u ovom smislu.
Da, hvala mnogo, ali mislim, na umu su mi, evo to će kolege sa folkloristike bolje da objasne, niz tabua koji su vezani za sferu prosto aktivnosti. Naprimjer, muškarac ne sme da plete nikako ili da šije u kući. Ne znam, đubre kako se baci, tako dalje. Mislim, prosto, na primjer, u srpskoj, a i u južnoslovenskim uopšte tradicionalnim kulturama, postoji niz tih tabua koji muškarac nikako ne sme da radi. Znači,
isto je u Britaniji,
isto.
Amudača regija, isto je to sve. Još i gore.
Još i gore, da.
Ono što je mene zaprepastilo, recimo, kod nas u regiji svi rade. I muškarac radi, žena radi. Sad dobro, ko je više priznat, ko je više plaćen, to je druga priča. Ali recimo u Britaniji čak imaju tog da kad dobiju djecu, da žena ostane doma i ide na pola radnog vremena, što onda stvara diskriminaciju sa mirovinama, sa zdravstvenim, sa svim. Tako da u nekim stvarima je čak i gore tamo nego kod nas u regiji. Ne treba ni nas kritizirati uvijek.
Da, ali vrlo interesantno, ali opet to su opet procesi dugog trajanja, dakle koji se ispoljavaju na različite načine, ali vrlo inspirativno, zaista. Tako da prosto kao da se otvaraju samo nova polja kroz ono što smo do sad spomenuli. Tako da hvala, zaista hvala, ovo je bilo izuzetno.
Dobro. Da li se još neko želi javiti za diskusiju nakon izvanrednog predavanja profesorke Topić? Ukoliko se neko još razmišlja dvoumno o pitanju, ja bih postavila pitanje profesorici u smislu sljedećeg. Kakve su vaše impresije, budući da radite u Londonu već duže vremena? Mislim da u svakom slučaju postoji velika diskrepanca u rodovim odnosima, u poimanju feminizma i svega oko čega smo danas govorili, u kontekstu u kome tamo živite u odnosu na naš južnoslovenski svet. Kod nas su jako još uvek, nažalost, previše postoji onaj histerezija habitusa, još uvek smo ovde previše pod uticajem tog patrijarhalnog poretka, sasvim je normalno, znamo zašto, bio je otomanski period, onda svi uzroci koji su pridoneli za stvaranje našeg kolektivnog habitusa, koji nažalost nije mogao dobiti drugačiji oblik. Sada da se vratimo na to postavljeno pitanje, da li postoji razlika u interrodovim relacijama u Engleskoj u odnosu na ovaj naš svet? Hvala na.
Da, zanimljivo je pitanje, ali Ja ne bi išla toliko daleko da bi rekla da je sada bolje na zapadu nego u našoj regiji. Ima problema i ovdje i ondje, ali recimo u znanosti mislim da je puno bolje kod nas u regiji, barem u Hrvatskoj. Ja kad sam bila studentica recimo u Hrvatskoj, ja sam studirala politologiju i novinarstvo, ja sam imala profesorice žene, bila je i prodekanica žena, pa su bile na ovoj onoj poziciji. Bilo je puno više muškaraca, mislim, daleko od toga da su bile manjina, ali ih je bilo. Dok recimo u Britaniji je puno više znanost muškarastija nego kod nas i recimo u Hrvatskoj se u zvanja dolazi temeljem zakona. Zakon kaže ko je docent, ko je izvanredni profesor, ko je redovni profesor i kad to ispuniš, prijaviš se, najgore što se može dogoditi je da odgode, da uzmu cijele godinu dana dok nekoga izaberu, jer eto tako to hoće, ali van toga će izabrati. Ali u Britaniji postoji ta kultura klasna gdje je sve na bazi umrežavanja. I znači nije što znaš, nego koga znaš. I tu žene recimo puno padaju. I ako vi pogledate recimo sastav znanosti, jako malo je žena na visokim pozicijama. Recimo kod mene na faksu gdje ja radim u Engleskoj, ja sam jedina žena koja je voditeljica istraživanja za svoj odsjek i na sastanku sam ja jedina, sve su muškarci. Onda recimo ovo za etiku, opet sve oni. Znači u previše tih soba za sastanak ja uđem gdje sam jedina. To nisam primijetila, ja sad ne mogu ići u detalje, nisam istraživala, ali ja kao studentica sam imala te profesorice koje sam ja gledala kao da ja bih htjela u budućnosti biti znanstvenica i biti kao one. Mislim da su neke stvari čak bolje kod nas u regiji. Ja sam nekoć mislila recimo da Hrvatska i naša regija općenito previše sve reguliraju, da je previše zakona, da je previše pravila. Ali onda sam, mislim, ovo je potpuno nevjerojatno da ja govorim tako pozitivno u Hrvatskoj, s obzirom sam uvijek kritizirala dok sam ovdje živjela, ali nakon sam te našla da je to bolje. Jer ovdje je sve na bazi umrežavanja, tako da ja imam i neke negativne ocjene. Ja sam u biti bila jako negativna i prema Hrvatskoj i prema regiji dok sam ovdje živjela. Ja sam u biti popustila i oladila od kad sam otišla i vidim da nije sve ni tako loše. Sad ali ono što je bolje recimo u Engleskoj što sam primijetila su radna prava. Puno bolje, tipa da ono neko ne znam krši prava, bolji su sudovi, bolje je pravosuđe, manje korupcije, to sam recimo primijetila. Ali s obzirom da ne postoji zakon koji regulira kako neko može napredovati, to nije diskriminacija, naprosto te ne mora dati napredovanje, odbijeti i moraš nekoga znati. Tako da ne znam, jako mi je teško odgovoriti, ali to mi se ne sviđa, to sve skupa, kako to funkcionira i zato u biti isto idem u Ameriku, s obzirom da su me zvali da se prijavim i ponudili mi posao, sam prihvatila jer je tamo opet više kao u našoj regiji. Vidim da su miješani odsjeci, puno je više žena i manjinaca na odsjecima u Americi nego u Britaniji gdje je sve na bazi umrežavanja. Dok u Americi je na bazi prijave, daj mi CV, daj mi prijavu da ti ocjenim, da vidim šta i kako i onda prema tome idu. Ne znam, jako mi je teško odgovoriti na to pitanje, ali više nisam sklona kritizirati našu regiju. Mislim da ima problema, naravno, ali mislim da ima i neke stvari koje su i kod nas dobre. Isto. Tako da ako išta druga sam postala više pozitivnija, što nisam mogla zamisliti dok sam ovdje živjela, će vam nešto pozitivno kazati.
U svakom slučaju možemo prihvatiti jednu, makar jednu prednost od tehnoloških inovacija, to umrežavanje, jer se u Makedoniji osjeća jako veliki napredak u ovom području o kome danas govorimo. Ova mlađa generacija u veliko je već emigrirala i to za stalno, da, što je nažalost, mislim, naša stvarnost. Procenat ženske migracije je u velikom podemu, tako da se možda može napraviti nije rez, nego ipak neka granica između tog kolektivnog interrodovog odnosa. Od pre 30 godina u odnosu na ono što se događa nakon podema interkontinentalne komunikacije, znate, sa migracijama ženski deo populacije sa ovih naših prostora ima apsolutno tu mogućnost da dostigne ono što zaista zaslužava. Da ne bude u svetu onom subordiniranom patrijarhalnom poretku, da. Na svu sreću, eto to bih...
Ali imaju odnosima s javnošću, recimo, ja vodim ovaj projekt od profesionalne organizacije žene u odnosima s javnošću i onda ja radim za Britaniju, a primila sam timove iz naše regije, ima Slovenija, Hrvatska i Srbija i onda još iz drugih zemalja iz Europe imaju. I ja sam se recimo iznenadila kad su one radile ta istraživanja u regiji, s obzirom da je odnosi s javnošću su ženska profesija, dakle tu su većina radne snage žene i onda u ovim našim regionalnim državama su u biti i žene menadžerice i šefice. Što je i logično ako je ženska profesija koja ima 80% žena da ih ima puno na tim funkcijama. A ono što se meni u Engleskoj recimo dogodilo je da su žene 80 ili 70% industrije, a muškarci na vrhu. I kad sam ja radila intervju u Engleskoj, ja sam neke svoje bivše studentice zvala i pitala, jer su sad u industriji, bile mi dale intervju za istraživanje i znala ova jedna, baš mi je to ostalo i baš sam je citirala u radovima koja je rekla, ali Martina, ti se sjećaš kad smo mi bili kod tebe na Beckettu i kad smo tu studirali, u našim učionicama bile smo same žene, bio je jedan ili nijedan muškarac i ja sam onda nakon toga došla u industriju i našla i sve ove muškarce menadžere, pitam se, ali odakle su ovi svi muškarci došli? Odakle oni? I ja sam na to odgovorila iz novinarstva, jer novinari muškarci prelaze u PR i onda dođu na te funkcije. Dok kod nas u regiji, koliko sam se sada vidjela, to nije tako. Ako je ženska feminizirana profesija, onda barem unutar toga imaju menadžerske funkcije, a možda nemaju recimo u građevini ili ovako nešto što je povijesno muško. Ali s obzirom da barem mogu u tim feminiziranim profesijama napredovati, pa ok, ne moramo mi sad preuzeti svijet, niko ne želi diskriminirati. Ovdje budi ti, ali u Britaniji je baš taj problem da ima taj stav think manager, think male. Znači misli menadžer, misli muškarac. Odnosno, kako Ecofeminism kaže, nije zapravo muškarac, nego je taj muškarasti način ponašanja. Pa bila žena, bio muškarac, ali moraš biti dakle jak, moraš biti čvrst, moraš biti agresivan, ne smiješ pokazivati emocije, ne smiješ pokazivati empatiju. I to je zbilja veliki problem u Britaniji. Da se ne može napredovati. Zato sam ja u biti jedina na tim većim funkcijama na mom faksu, jer sam ja u krajnjoj liniji iz naše regije, a mi smo se, hvala Bogu, naučili boriti za sebe, jer drugačije ne možeš preživjeti u našoj regiji. Ja ću se boriti dok ne dobijem što mi treba, ali većina, recimo ove Britanke, oni to nisu u stanju, nisu tako odgojeni. Tako da se stalno radim ta istraživanje, vječno se čudim i onda se uvijek mislim, pa Bože moj, nije ni ta naša regija baš tako opet loša. Ajde, ima barem, postoji zakon koji kaže, ako objavi toliko, moraš je izabrati. Ali ovdje to nema, u Britaniji to nema, odnosno tamo, sad sam trenutno u Hrvatskoj, nisam u Britaniji, ali tamo nema.
Dobro, možemo nastaviti. Da li još neko želi se uključiti u diskusiju koja je veoma interesantna? Možemo da li se neko javlja za reč?
Ja samo Uroša vidim na ekranu, ja ne vidim nikoga drugog.
Čekajte, onda da, ne vidim da se neko javlja za reč. Sada za sada, da, ne javlja se niko. Dobro, u svom slučaju možemo zaključiti ovo veoma značajni aspekt ove naše istraživanja ekološke oblasti spoja ekologije i feminizma. Onda da se najsrdačnije zahvalim i da se vratimo na engleski kako bi oficijalno završili ovaj naš ingeniozan program celodnevni na kom ste svi učestvovali. Can we conclude our inviting a lecture from Professor Martina Topić? And now, many thanks to Professor Martina Topić for her wonderful presentation. I hope we shall stay in contact and we shall develop our mutual interdisciplinary investigations, research topics between folklore and psychology and all the discipline of humanities or of many researchers who have attended on this conference. So may I invite Goran Đurđević to say something on the end of our 3-day conference, please. So
Yes, I'm here. I'm enjoying in the silence and listening all of you and all your discussions. So first of all, thank you, Martina, for your great lecture. And it was very interesting to promote ecofeminism and to discuss a little bit more about these aspects of the ecofeminism. While those questions, what Martina asked, why do we need ecofeminism? Well, I have an answer, because we will have a new edited book dedicated to ecofeminism by Zuzana Marjanić and me, published by Emerald in London very soon. So I can send once a link when it's published. So, and I hope that we will have chances to discuss a little bit more. To conclude this 3 days conference, I will say, and I will try to say it short, first of all, it is amazing that we connect so many different participants from 7 or 8 countries with so many different topics under those umbrella term ecoanthropology or environmental humanities or eco-humanities, including papers dedicated to ecofeminism, eco-criticism, eco-folklore studies or eco-folkloristics, different kind of art or political ecology, ecological philosophy, aesthetics, and many other subdisciplines. So this is amazing that we actually have this opportunity to discuss about those different perspectives. Second, very important, particularly from the perspective of the region of Southeastern Europe and Northern Macedonia, is that these topics are not developed enough in the region. So it is also good that this conference should be some kind of starting point for new events, including certain platform where we can at least discuss regularly on the mailing list and maybe share each other information, what's going on, and maybe co-organize some future events dedicated to these topics, at least these online events which make less energy and less environmental damage to the world. And also, so this could be additional aspects to think about this kind of platform where we can all communicate and cooperate, because as we know at the moment, there is no this kind of association or society or organization in the Southeastern Europe dedicated to those environmental humanities. So this could be a way to think more. The third is, of course, we should consider to publish those valuable works, particularly in the languages of Southeastern Europe. I know that contemporary academia and academic pressure says it's better to publish in the English-speaking countries, and particularly in UK or USA, which is always very, very valuable. And I encourage all of you to do this. But for this kind of specific topics, I think the bigger achievement will be if we do this in the region of the Southeastern Europe, particularly in some of the languages such as Macedonian or Serbian or Montenegrin, etc. So languages which do not usually have so many papers dedicated to these topics. And I invite Lydia and Zuzana Marjanić, who sadly left, to participate in the opening of the exhibition Ecological Footprint by Ivan Alžetski in the Ivanić-grad. So to discuss a little bit more after the conference and make a way and organize a place where we can actually publish some of these papers, and we will definitely stay in touch. So these are some kind of technical issues. From the thematical approach, I think we should definitely continue to work, and I'm very happy to see young, even PhD students from different kinds of the world that present their work. And I hope it is good to encourage them to continue their PhDs and their papers dedicated to these topics, particularly according to local topics read or rewritten in this kind of new perspectives or new approaches, like Martina is doing all the time in her valuable work, and she becomes some kind of world-class scholar, which is actually the goal for many of people from the Southeastern Europe to achieve. So actually, this is some other aspects. So I will not speak more. I think this is enough from my side. Just big thankfulness for all of you, participants, moderators, audience, for all of you who asked the questions in the chat or other. And my biggest gratefulness and thankful for Macedonian colleagues who organize this part of event, particularly Lydia, who was super patient with me and working with me, and also Susanna Marjanic, who also did an amazing job. And to be honest, two of them, they deserve a good appreciation for all of us. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, all of you, colleagues, friends. Thank you so much for attending on our 3-day wonderful scientific and human atmosphere during our discussion and presentation. On behalf of the Institute of Folklore, Marko Cepenkov from Skopje, and on behalf of my personal side, as a head of Department of Folkloristics and Ethnopathology in the Institute, I would like to thank you for taking part in this wonderful event. We heard wonderful and very inspirative papers in the domain of all topics of interest, such as which cover the main topic of ecoanthropology. I hope that we learn a lot of interesting things, and maybe we succeed to tackle the answers of some questions about the role of the man, and especially the human, in interaction with nature and vice versa. So the role of nature in questioning the role of the man as a human being. It has been a pleasure being with you all of those days during the conference, presentation and debate. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, your patience. And I just want to add that I have been honored to be among all of you as one very interesting theme who will, I believe, who will cooperate in the future. I think this conference may be the initial idea for the future ideas of any aspects of cooperation. It is also very important for Macedonian folkloristic, because we have the master and doctoral degree of folkloristics. It has been the unique in the process, in the place of Southeast European Europe. So you are welcome to cooperate and to develop our cooperation on the level of our contemporary and future students. Thank you a lot, and bye-bye. I wish you everything the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Pozdrav svima.
Bye.